Hey, it's Igor here, and since we're approaching the end of the year and wanting to do something special, I've decided to analyze all the feedback that I got from my students and this feedback that you guys are sending to me, and to pick up a few most powerful ideas of 2022. Those ideas that brought the most victories to you guys as well as to my other students. And today, I'm happy to present those two absolutely killing ideas that can bring you a relatively easy win even against experienced opponents. Let's get right into it. And the first idea is kind of an improved version of the Scholar's Checkmate. Now, you are probably familiar with the Scholar's Checkmate itself, but anyway, just in case, let me share it real quick. Queen h5 here, attacking the pawn, black defends it, we go bishop c4, and if your opponent is careless and plays the move something like knight f6, hoping that it attacks your queen and forces it to move back, we're playing queen takes f7 checkmate. Now, this is a well-known stuff, but let me share with you an idea that can work even against players who are 2000 rated and beyond. At this point, instead of playing a more, beginner level queen h5 move, let's start with the classical move knight to f3, attacking this pawn. Black goes knight to c6. Now we play pawn d4, the Scotch game, but after pawn takes, instead of moving your knight over here to d4 and recapturing the pawn, all of a sudden your knight changes its mind and jumps over here to g5. And the initial intent seems to be to pressure this pawn that you can achieve by playing bishop c4 on the following move and attacking this pawn twice. But this Trojan horse is actually a deadly piece, because in most cases your opponents will be annoyed by the knight and will play pawn h6, hoping that, that was just an uncalled for and it pushes the knight back. But instead, you're ready to sacrifice the knight forward to expose the king. After king takes, bishop comes over here to c4 with a check to the king. Now your opponent starts thinking where to move the king, and moving it forward seems to be dangerous. Moving it over here to e7 looks clumsy, it blocks out all the other pieces of black, and the most natural intuitive reaction is to hide it back to safety, hide it back to e8. But that is actually a losing mistake, because after that you play queen h5 with a tempo, check to the king, and now our Scholar's Checkmate idea is getting shape. After king to e7 and queen to f7, you see that it's nearly the Scholar's Checkmate in reality, but that works again even against very experienced opponents. The king is pushed forward to d6, and now you have a couple ways to finish it off. The easiest one to remember is just bishop f4, you keep delivering checks, and you checkmate it to death very soon. Now, if you check this with Stockfish, Stockfish will scream at you that a real gentleman shouldn't behave like that it's a shady business, and Stockfish knows a number of ways to get out of the trap. And although it's kind of true when you're playing against Stockfish, it's not true when you're playing against real human beings, because they're, first of all, getting trapped like that very often, and even if not, their king is exposed, and even if it's not getting checkmated immediately, you have this long-term attack, and it's always easier to attack than to defend. In fact, I recorded another video, which I'll link up there and below in the description, that you can check out later, showing what to do if your opponent doesn't get trapped. You still have a strong attack there. The next idea is also highly effective. It's kind of like an improved version of the fried liver attack, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. But before we move right into it, let me also take a moment to pass my best greetings for you for the end of the year. Since we're approaching the end game, I hope that all the bad things will left in 2022 and you'll reach the 2023 with new energy, and all your plans will work out both on the chessboard and in real life. Let me also remind you that we're in the final days of our special offers in honor of the Christmas and the New Year. So if you want to elevate your chess, you can click the link below the video and pick any course at a massive discount, often up to 80% discount, and improve your chess, reach your chess goals. Also, 4 lucky winners will get our super pack for free from Santa. Again, you can get all the details below. All right, so what's an improved version of the fried liver attack? Well, first of all, just in case, let's figure out what a standard fried liver attack is. So here in this position, one of the most common opening positions of all, after white goes knight g5, if black is unaware of this variation, black's in trouble, because we're attacking this pawn twice, and it looks like the only way is to play pawn d5 to block out this diagonal. Now after white takes, very often black impulsively recaptures, which is a losing mistake. In fact, the correct move is knight a5, but knight takes d5 leads to this brilliant sacrifice, knight takes f7, king takes, and after that we bring our queen forward with a double attack to the king and the knight. So we pick the knight back, keep attacking the king, and black is crushed. So that is how the standard fried liver attack works out. But of course, the main problem is that most of your opponents are familiar with it, but we can still trick them. So here's a little trick that allows us to win even against somebody who's familiar with the standard fried liver attack. Instead of going knight g5 immediately, we toss in between move pawn to d4, pretending like we just want to trade pawns here, and after black captures, instead of recapturing over here, we still go knight to g5, attacking this pawn. And what it does is that very often it catches your opponents off guard. They aren't familiar with this particular variation. They start thinking independently, and their thinking process goes, okay, so he attacks this, so I gotta play pawn d5, and they still do. And after you take here on d5, they immediately recapture with their knight because they think that, well, that's the right thing to do, right? You gotta recapture. But in fact, although the position is slightly different, but it leads to very similar combo. Not exactly, but very similar. So basically the idea is quite the same. Although we play this in between move pawn d4, but basically we do want to still play this knight takes f7 followed by queen to f3 tactics. But it's important to play another in between move to castle first. Because if you play knight takes f7, looks tempting at first. But it's bad because instead of taking with the king, black can play queen e7, and that's a little annoying. You have to deal with this check, and it's unclear what exactly you're going to do about that. Therefore, instead of playing this move, we just castle first. And, of course, it creates another unpleasant threat for black. We're ready to play rook to e1 and to attack the king. And we're still putting a lot of pressure on black's position overall, you know, with this bishop. Our queen potentially is ready to play somewhere here, attack the knight, attack the pawn. So black is in big trouble here. In fact, you're already winning the game, really, because black has no defense. In most cases, black is going to play bishop e7. Looks nice. Black is trying to castle, but you still play knight takes f7. And here's where you basically utilize the same tactical idea in a slightly new position. King takes, queen to f3, all the same stuff, double attack of the king and the knight over here. Our bishop supports this attack, and black is done, basically. What can black do about that? Well, I mean, moving the king forward is just deadly. You're going to attack it. In most cases, they're playing bishop to f6, trying to cover the king. Now, bishop takes d5, check to the king. They play bishop e6, trying to cover it. Now we take over here, black recaptures, and, you know, black's king is so exposed that there are numerous ways for you to attack it, and many of those ways are good, in fact. So even if you forget the specific follow-up, that's not a problem. It's fairly easy to attack black anyway. One of the variations is queen to b3, because in that case, black usually goes queen d5. Looks like a good position to move to centralize the queen and to cover the king and all that stuff, but it's actually quite a big blunder, although black's position is difficult anyway. But here after rook to e1, there is one more problem for black. Besides defending their king, they now also have to guard their queen. So both of their most valuable pieces are hanging, and they're basically done. For example, king e6, bishop f4 check, bishop e5, and here there is a nice move, pawn to c4, which wins the game. We're attacking the queen over here, and if black captures en passant, then it exposes this open d file. And now we can take advantage of this. For example, we can trade here, and then go rook d1, and we're taking advantage of the pin. And we're winning. I mean, the king is exposed and we're winning some material, so black is completely devastating. Even when your opponent doesn't fall for this trap, very often they fall for the other one. Here in this position, after we play pawn d4, follow up with knight g5, attacking this pawn on f7, black goes pawn d5, we recapture, and as we already know, the natural looking move knight takes d5 is actually a fatal mistake, and black loses after that. Very often, if your opponent is more advanced, he will play by analogy with the main line of the two knights game, which is the move knight to a5. That's how black usually should react in the main line of the two knights game. In this case, after knight e5, we go bishop to b5 check, pawn c6. Again, we're kind of playing a little somewhat similar to the main line, and bishop to d3. At this point, the position is about equal, normally speaking. But here, what happens in reality very often is that black goes pawn h6, because this knight is annoying, you drop it back. They play bishop e7 just to develop, you develop, black develop. But then, all of a sudden, it turns out that the last move of black was a mistake, because now you can pick up this pawn, knight takes d4. And you want a pawn. You have a centralized knight while the black's knight is misplaced on the edge of the board. And if black thought that you miscalculated and captures this knight over here on d4, here comes a boom. Discovered attack, bishop h7, check to the king, and you win the queen on the next move. Now, let me know what you think about this, or if you have any questions, drop them in the comments down below. Also, of course, let me send you my best wishes once again. If you want to take advantage of our special offers up to 80% discount, you may click the link somewhere on the screen or below. And in whatever case, I hope you're having a great time with your loved ones. Take care.